Welcome back to Direct Edition, a podcast about nothing and everything. I'm your host, Dave. Today's episode, I sit down with Dinesh Shamdasani, who is the CEO, publisher, co-founder of Bad Idea Corporation, which is a comic book publisher. Previous to that, he also was the publisher and CEO of Valiant Comics. I met Dinesh in 2024. Actually, I guess I met him in 2023 at Rose City Comic Con, where I introduced myself to him. But then we got to know each other a little bit better and talked a lot more at OAX, the original art convention in Orlando in January of 2024. And subsequently, I see him pretty much every couple months at a convention. And I wanted to have him on for a while, but I think this was the right time to do it, as Bad Idea is set to bring forth Planet Death, which is their new book. And it has some really interesting implications in what's happening in comics right now. He also is going to be publishing a book by my friend John Wayshak, who's the artist on a book called Cul-de-sac, coming out this year from Bad Idea. This conversation has got a kind of a wide range of topics, but it sticks to mostly comics, movies, art, and kind of the nerddom around that. But his story is interesting, growing up in Hong Kong and going to school in London and then USC at film school. I really enjoy Dinesh's enthusiasm. It's he if you know him and you know about him, he's polarizing because of some of the things that Bad Idea has done, hence the name of the publisher, Bad Idea. But all in all, I think we need more people who are super enthusiastic about the comic book medium to be the people publishing them. We're seeing a lack of that on some of the Marvel side and a little bit on the DC side. Anyway, I'm really happy with how this turned out. And, if you watch my other channel, West Coast Davengers, you've probably seen him on the OAX video or the Emerald City Comic Con video from this year. So I'm going to bring that to you just a moment. But before I get started, to anybody that's watching or listening to this, that's a new subscriber or new, please subscribe. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button. It really does help push this out to new people. This is a young podcast. I mean, we're only on episode 55 or so, but I'd still like to bring this to more people, much like my other YouTube channel. And if you're watching or listening on Spotify or Apple or anywhere else, you can rate the podcast, and that'll really help me grow the audience for this and bring different guests. Okay, so right now I'm presenting to you my chat with Dinesh Shamdasani. Welcome back to Direct Edition, a podcast about nothing and everything. I'm your host, Dave, and today's guest, he is a comic book publisher. He is an entrepreneur at spirit. He is a original art collector. He's worked in film and TV. And today I'm going to ask the question, is Dinesh Shamdasani a bad idea? Dinesh, how are you doing?
Right off the bat. I'm good. Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah. I think it's, because your company's Bad Idea, you can make different sentences out of it, and it, all relates to you.
I've heard them all. We had a knife, like one of these, at the show at C2E2, and a fan came over and just started writing on it. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, I was like, "Oh, okay." And he wrote Blade Idea. Like, just out of the blue, started writing on our blade.
It sells itself. I mean, the idea, good or bad, it sells itself. So we were just talking before we started recording about C2E2. How was the vibe towards the table, your booth, and the Planet Death book?
It was great. First of all, C2E2 was a banging C2E2 this year. They told me it was their largest ever attendance. They had, I think, the biggest artist alley anyone's ever had at a show in North America. 600 tables, something like that. It was huge attendance, really good energy. They're very kind, Reed Pop. They put us right in the front, right. You couldn't miss us. You come in the door, there we are. We had the big armor from Legacy Effects. People had to stand in it and take a photo. We were giving out Planet Death books, which is a huge draw because Tomas's art is just phenomenal. So we had a really rocking time. It was a great show.
That's awesome. We saw each other last at Emerald City, and you were one of three publishers there, like
Yeah.
that had, some noticeable space. I mean, it's it's actually a good way to stand out now that the, big two, Image, Dark, like most of them kind of pull out of conventions. They don't do
It's
conventions anymore.
everyone. We were one of three at Emerald City. We were one of three, maybe four at WonderCon, because there's many local publishers. We were
Mhm.
the only publisher at C2E2.
Wow. That's kind of, sad in a way,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
But
Um
it's tough time in comics. Diamond bankruptcy, Lunar fractured with PRH distribution, the worst period in sales we've had over the last 18 months in like 30 years. It's a tough time for publishers.
which is interesting because the episode I did on West Coast Davengers this past weekend was a retailer roundtable where I had the two owners of Comics Place up in Bellingham, Jeff and Django, and Aaron from Now or Never in San Diego on, and they're having, like, it's a mixed
They're having
bag,
an amazing time. Retail's
but
doing very well.
yeah, retailers are doing well because there's a gaggle of really high profile books coming out that are kind of rising above where we haven't seen that too much in the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
The Ultimate line obviously is one of them.
Absolute.
Absolute is really
Hush.
kicking ass. Hush, yeah.
Planet Death.
Yeah, Planet. Well, you're making waves. I mean, there's did you hit the million mark yet?
No, I don't think we will. We're going to top out, I think, at 909,650, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And we'll get into that, but I wanted to reel it back, go back, because
Yeah.
I've listened to a bit of your life story, and I find your the place you grew up fascinating to me because it's physically and actually foreign to me. You grew up in Hong Kong, right?
I did, yeah. When it was
Yeah.
a felony, and even a little bit during the handover.
And so, because I don't know much about what American comics look like in Hong Kong, what was your first exposure to comics in Hong Kong?
We growing up, I grew up there. I was there from 1985 till about 99,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't get American comics. I knew about them kind of in theory, and maybe I'd seen them in a movie or something once in a while. Hong Kong was a big cinephile
Yeah.
city. This is the period in which Hong Kong movies were second most exciting industry in the movie business. John Woo, Jackie Chan. I mean, it was massive, massive.
Oh yeah.
I grew up assuming that everyone on the planet was just some kind of a movie nut because everyone in Hong Kong was a movie nut. I mean, the movie theaters were always packed, video stores were gangbusters, but there were no comic shops, and comics were very hard to get a hold of. We did have on the Navy military base, you could go and you could buy American magazines. You couldn't get comics, but you can get American magazines. And I got exposed to Wizard magazine first. And I love Wizard magazine, especially early Wizard magazine. It's just very exciting. It's very energetic. It's very easy to learn a lot about comics. And I started from there buying Marvel Universe trading cards, Series 3 and Series 4, and the Marvel Masterpieces. And you read all the backs of them, and you've got
Yeah.
power rankings and origins and first appearance covers. It's all very exciting if you're 12 years old. We didn't get comics until right after the death of Superman. I had a buddy. His dad would go back to America. I would go back and forth from America to Hong Kong for business trips about every 6 months. He would bring back for his son 20, 30 comic books. And this guy would then give a few of them, one each, to his friends, not for being nice, because he wanted to hook us on them and then be the sole distributor, be the only person we can get comics from. And that lasted a couple weeks, and then we discovered a comic shop had opened up in Hong Kong, Comics Network.
Hmm.
And this is the 90s. Like, it's just taking off. I remember buying the first comic I got ever was Adventures of Superman 497, one of the Doomsday issues.
Okay.
My buddy was trying to figure out which comics would be worth the least amount of money, which ones were the least exciting, and he could give that away as his first, everyone's first. He picked poorly with me. And then I bought Venom Lethal Protector 1 from a comic shop. And Return of Superman. I remember putting down a pre-order for Return of Superman, the white cut, all the die cuts. And then everyone was super into comic books for a couple of years, and then everyone wasn't into comic books, except I stayed in comic books. I was still a fan, still buying Wizard magazine, still buying comic books. All the way, I probably stopped for 2 years when I was in law school in London.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I went to USC to film school, it was amazing. I could go on eBay. I could you couldn't get books on eBay in Hong Kong.
Yeah, and you had comic stores all over the place, and even back then you'd still be able to find them in certain stores or maybe Hot Topic or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
which was wild to me. I remember going to my first comic shop in Hong Kong when I found that first one. It's this huge track. It took me like 3 or 4 hours to find it. I found it in the Yellow Pages. Walked around a part of Hong Kong I'd never been to. Electric Road. Couldn't find it. Couldn't find it. Almost gave up. It was in the very, very back of this tiny mall. I found it, and I remember walking up to it.
mhm.
Super bright, comics everywhere. I'd never seen that many comics in my life. It felt like that scene in Die Hard where they open the vault finally and
Yeah,
Beethoven
yeah.
plays. I didn't know what to do with myself. I was like, too much going on. Coming to America and seeing that over and over and over again. Each store has its own personality, its own feel.
Oh yeah.
Who owns it? Very cool.
It's something that what you just said is something I've been saying now for a bunch of years. The last frontier of independently owned businesses in this country that have their own personality lie in really two things: comic stores and record stores.
Yeah.
But comic stores more so reflect the owner than record stores ever will, for the most part. Um,
Yeah, and it's really listen, as a publisher, it can be a pain in the ass.
yeah.
You cannot build a program for direct market stores. You have to build a program for each store. And there are 2,000 of them, so it's very, very difficult. It's part of the reason why when we launched Bad Idea, we reduced the number of stores so we could focus on them, hyper focus. But it's also wonderful because every one of them has their own flavor, their own community.
Mm-hmm.
You can very quickly walk into a store and be like, I'm coming here every week because I like the friends I've made. I like the owner. I like the manager. They show me stuff I never would have found otherwise. That's really rare.
It's rare, and it also, on the flip side of that, to play devil's advocate, it can be a detriment, because if you live in a small town or even a small city and you only have one shop, you're shit out of luck if
Yeah.
that person is the comic book store guy.
Well, that's what digital can be a huge asset for comics. We've done such a poor job as an industry of it. We had Comixology,
Mm-hmm.
and they became what they became. It feels like we have no digital platform that works right now.
No, and unfortunately, like I subscribed to Marvel Unlimited for like 2.5 years during the pandemic to kind of to reread some stuff that I hadn't read and I didn't own, and I was not impressed by their platform at all, and leaving stuff out, like and that's a bigger conversation to get into, but like, how can you leave Garth Ennis's Punisher out of your history? Like, it's the greatest use of that character, and it's like 10 years of reading.
I don't know why they make decisions they do. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah, but digital comics are definitely a sore spot for a lot of people for two reasons: for what you said, and then for people that don't believe in reading digitally. I
I feel
can,
the opposite. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't, like, if somebody wants to read that way, more power to them. Like, not everybody can have the space to have long boxes and short boxes and shelves of hardcovers and trades. It's just not an option for
And no matter
everybody.
how much space you have, at some point, you run out of space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Certain things to digital, moving certain things to collections, and keeping certain things to single issues or maybe CGC or whatever. It's good to be able to have the choice to balance.
Yes,
We got a
options are good.
question at C2E2. We got a question from a fan saying, "Will you? You're going wide now. Will you do digital?" I replied, "We'd love to. We've been looking at the different players. We can't find anyone that's worth our time to utilize. They're all too
Mm.
small, too janky. Who do you use? Who do you want to see us on?" The fan didn't have an answer.
No, no.
Like, I don't really like anybody. Okay, well, we both like the idea of digital, but there's not a good player. When I was at Valiant, we found that a lot of the success of digital was sampling. People would wake up in the morning, go on Comixology, buy our first issue, be like, "Oh, this is really good."
Mm-hmm.
Go to the store, buy it again, put a subscription down for 2, 3, whatever it was, physically. That was interesting to us.
That's a version of what I do, actually. For a lot, I will read a first single issue as it comes out. I'll buy it at my store, and then I said, okay, I like this. I'm gonna get the trade when it comes out, and I'll continue to read it as long as it exists in trade or hardcover. And I think that's a way to do it. Or you can sample the first issue and decide you don't ever want to look at that book again.
Yeah, yeah.
That is the real true benefit, I think, to the quote unquote floppy industry, because you get to decide in one book if you want to continue. Now, obviously, I think a good story should hook you from the first book.
Yeah.
But there are some that do take. I've gone back and revisited something I didn't like. Same with a movie or a TV show, and depending on the day I'm having, it may
Yeah.
not be my thing.
Yeah. 100% expectation is so important to
Mm-hmm.
storytelling. We try and think about that in terms of cover, trade dress, logo, colors, paper stuff. But it's what you did that day. It's what you ate. It's who you saw. It's what crazy news you got or crazy news is happening in the world that can set a certain tone.
Or how much sleep you got or didn't get.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting because I'm assuming that Wizard Magazine leads you to become a Valiant fan. Is
Yeah.
that accurate?
It was partly that. Wizard Magazine really got me to be a fan of two things. Wizard was great at promoting Valiant,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great at promoting Marvel like battles. I knew a lot about which characters would fight each other, and that was so cool because they're so four color and the logos are really cool, and you see them. I just love that. But it was Valiant because Wizard, and also I felt this weight of history with the bigger Marvel and DC characters.
Yeah,
Valiant was new. I could
sure.
jump in straight away. The trades had just started coming out, so I could read the first four issues of X of Manowar and then jump into the zero issue because it was chromium and shiny. That felt like an easy way to get in.
It's interesting because if we think about it, actually there's more history of the Valiant characters than we ever knew. But as kids, we
Yeah,
we didn't have Gold Key
yeah.
a Gold Key Harbinger or
Turok.
Turok. Yeah, why did I forget the greatest book of all time?
How many copies is that? One, two, three. Was it
It's 5. Yeah, I keep a short box of them. Yeah,
short books? Yeah,
yeah,
that.
yeah. I send them to people. I sign them and send them to people.
Awesome.
Um,
I need one of those.
I'll get you one. Yeah, I'll send you one. Totally. Totally. It's interesting too with Valiant because I didn't take to it except really EXO. Like I think the art style that Bart Sears, I mean Turok, uh, because Bart Sears' art spoke to me a little bit more. I wasn't into the older style that Bob Layton was putting down because I didn't grow up looking at his stuff. But with Wizard, I mean I have a love hate with what they did because they took advantage of us in the
Yeah,
biggest way possible. I mean, it was technically like payola, like
yeah,
but it's responsible for everybody our age seeing artists that we didn't know, hearing about books that we had no clue. There's almost like nothing like it in any other industry I can really think of, where it's like sideshow wrestling, kind of like shooting, like doing the character type thing, but there's something behind it that's also real, and the art and the artists and creators that were behind all of that were the real things.
I mean, we need it. We really need a Wizard magazine in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
They became very powerful.
Yes.
Dark corrupts, and especially later on, like Death of Captain America. I don't know if you know that story.
No.
Awful what was going on at Wizard with that. But earlier on, being able to get people excited about the industry, awareness, just awareness. I mean, we don't really have. There's no trailers in front of a movie in our industry. There's no Total Film or Empire Magazine or Entertainment Weekly magazine or talk shows where people go and get interviewed. There's not any of that stuff, so it's very difficult, and it's becoming more and more difficult. This is why a lot of publishers are struggling as well to get people to even know that a book that they desperately would be excited about even exists.
I think there's a disconnect in between all of it. Like there's places, on my channel, both
Yeah,
of these aren't huge, but like Mickey's got a big channel, Swaggle House, and I've had Mickey on this podcast before, but there's a disconnect in the stores. There's a lot that know each other, but the camaraderie is kind of missing. And for better or for worse, Wizard in the beginning definitely created a camaraderie that was left over from, zine culture. And then on the other side of it, you had like Fantagraphics doing Comics Journal, which catered to the more sophisticated indie heads. But those were two avenues where you could get the news and you
yeah.
can get the advertisement for the books. And I agree with you that there's not something cohesive for publishers. But the problem also
Great
is with,
fact. For everybody, even for the movie business, struggles with this. The movie business, if it wasn't for live sports events, I think they'd be in the exact same position we are. They have
Yeah.
money to be able to pay for big games, finales, finals, Super Bowl ads. We don't have that.
Yeah, I mean the trailers before during the big game seem to still be the biggest deal for people. Like,
Well, that's the first step. It lets people know that this thing is happening.
mm-hmm.
Then you can fracture into wherever they are to get them to build desire and urgency. But that awareness piece is where we really struggle with comics.
So uh, breaking away from comics briefly, but talking about films, you that was your first love, or at least where you went to school. You went to USC to study film and TV, and I know it's ended up, you fell back into comics because you love them more. But what's some of your early inspirations in movies that really got you into it? Because we all have a couple of movies that are cemented in our childhood that never go away.
Sure. I mean, it's the same as everyone, or a lot of people, I think. 80s kid, right? So, God, the genre we had was amazing. Genre films. My favorite film of all time is Conan the Barbarian. But I love Terminator, Aliens, The Thing, RoboCop, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And growing up in Hong Kong, there's a bunch of Hong Kong cinema that I just think I fell in love with. And then Hong Kong is very cinephile literate. So older films like Hustler or Bicycle Thief, things like
Mm.
that, for me were all on equal footing. But that's where I think comics really hooked me because when I went and I first read like The Death of Superman,
Yeah.
there was no storytelling like that in
No.
the business in every genre in every era of film. That, that was so big and operatic. Even Hong Kong films weren't doing that.
Right.
Comic,
Right.
comic book storytelling now is very. I mean, the Avengers movies they do that, but
Yeah.
then they weren't. No one was doing that.
No, I mean, and like you said, those big action set pieces that we were used to as kids, Cameron, James Cameron, period, end of story.
Yeah.
But it's funny because we didn't get Chow Yun Fat and Jackie Chan, uh, and John Woo until what, like early '90s, and I remember, yeah, I remember seeing Rumble in the Bronx in theaters and being like, "What the fuck is this? This is insane!" And I'm like, none of this was shot in New York. Well, I'm from New York. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
none of this was shot in New York. But I'm like, this is amazing. And then Hard Target, Broken Arrow,
Right.
like Hard Boiled, all of these movies have a huge place in my heart. And yeah, I can, and that's the thing. We did grow up at a time where the action in comics and the action movies, like we were getting the best.
The best.
Yeah.
The best.
Um,
I love when people haven't seen. I had a buddy that hadn't seen Aliens the other day.
oh,
I was like, oh my god, I'm so. He didn't want to. He was like, I don't know, I'm not really into that stuff. And I just said to him, I'm so jealous that you. And that was it. That's what he was like. Really, you're jealous? All right, I'll watch it.
yeah.
And then we went down a rabbit hole. I showed him Police Story. I showed him three or four. I
Mm.
was like, what have I been doing my whole life? He couldn't believe movies were like this. Yeah, so he grew up.
It's there always seems to be a pushback from people these days where you're like, oh, it's okay that I haven't seen this movie, but like you said, it's not about a badge of honor. It's like exciting when you meet somebody or you're friends with somebody, you get to show them. I got to show my friend The Raid for the first time recently, and I'm like,
Awesome.
I'm watching his face. I'm like, I can't
Yeah.
wait to show you The Raid too.
It's community, right? That's the big
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, it's sharing the things you love, and if somebody doesn't connect with something that you love, that doesn't have to be the end of things. It's just the one thing. There's so much art to connect with out there.
That's another reason why C2E2 I think was so big. I brought my I've got three kids, 6, 5, and 3, and I'm starting to bring them to conventions. I brought my 6-year-old daughter to Emerald City. It was her
Mhm.
first convention. She worked the booth, tiring. For my 5-year-old son, they were great. Both of them really worked hard. They were amazing. But he said to me at the end of on the flight back, he said, "Can I do another one? Can I go another show?" And I said, "Yeah,
Aw.
of course. You worked really hard. We'll get another one." He said, "Everybody's so nice to each other." He said, "It's not like when we go out to the mall or the park or whatever." He's like, "Everybody's nice." And I think what he was looking at was someone would walk by and they're wearing whatever cosplay, and someone else would be like, I love your outfit. Oh my God, where's it from?" And everyone's just supporting everyone else and is excited for everyone else. They're excited that we're all sharing the same
Mhm.
love for something. It's cool.
It's well, community is a huge part of what I do and why I do it because something that I have the power to now is create a community
Yeah.
that's surrounded by people that are into the same thing I'm into. And this podcast specifically brings that to even more things, music, movies, all of it. Um, and it's interesting that you say that, and that your son echoed that, because if you were to look at comics from the online world, it's the opposite. Like, people are garbage to each other.
Yeah.
But what I have to always remind people, and I remind myself daily, especially when I get a stupid negative comment, I'm like, those people aren't real. Like, they may physically have a body, but they're not real. They sit on their computer anonymously. But you go to a convention like OAX, or you go to Heroes, and you get the love for the stuff and a shared love with everybody there.
I think I 100% agree. I think also language fails us,
Yeah.
especially when we're typing, and you're missing so many cues. People misunderstand things or take things to heart. There's so many times I've met a fan who has been very aggressive with us online. I meet them at a
Mm-hmm.
convention, and they're so sweet. And I don't think it's they're afraid that there's a physicality. I think they're reading more cues. We're
Yeah.
able to understand each other better. They're seeing that our team is working really hard and that we're real people, and we're seeing that they have a legitimate point of view. It's very different.
It is. It is. I've had that happen. I've also had that too, as the person, the aggressor, let's say, even though I'm not that way anymore. So you went to USC, you studied film, but your first big wave in comics is buying Valiant at the bankruptcy auction, right? What take me a little bit through that. I mean, I know it was a long process
Yeah.
and all that, but where does even the idea come up? Did you just happen to see that there was a bankruptcy auction and they were going up?
No, I never really wanted to work in comics. Not that I didn't want to, I just didn't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I loved movies, I loved film, and I wanted to work in that business. Thank God I didn't. My experiences there, it's a horrible business. It has its moments, but it's not like
Yeah.
comics. Comics is lovely. Um, Partly because it's less money. The I was in film school,
Mm-hmm.
USC, best film school in the world, and I'm with all these kids that are meant to be the best of the best, and they're all kind of idiots. Nobody really knows what they're doing, and nobody has a lot of experience, and nobody even has watched that many movies. My freshman roommate had never seen the Terminator, first Terminator. I was like, "What? I don't want to show it to you at this point. I'm not excited. What are you doing here?" And this is meant to be where George Lucas went into Zemeckis, all these amazing filmmakers,
Yeah.
and my year was exceptionally bad. I've come to realize I'm the
Mm-hmm.
only person in my 2 years above me, 2 years below me, and my year. I'm the only person that still works in some capacity in the movie business. So it was a exceptionally dry year. But
Yeah.
I got very jaded very quickly, and I started to. When people do this, I started to lie about having been graduated and apply for jobs, and I started working in the movie business. And I got jobs working for like Kim Pierce, who's a filmmaker, did Boys Don't Cry, and the Carrie movie. I worked
Mm-hmm.
for Neil Abute, who did In the Company of Men, and he did the remake of The Wicker Man,
Yeah.
which I
With
got
Nick
fired from.
Cage.
Yeah. I worked for Millennium Films. I worked for a bunch of different places, and I would often start working there, and quickly they'd find out you are sick way too much to be real. What's going on? You're still at USC. You're still a student. A lot of times they'd say, "That's amazing. We can't keep you on." A couple of times they'd say, "That's amazing. We're going to keep you on. You've got some gumption."
Okay.
Um, so I climbed the ladder very quickly
Mm-hmm.
while I was still in film school. I became a director of development at a production company that had a deal on the Universal lot. So I'm going to the Universal Studios 3 times a week. I'm a director of development at a production company making movies. And I quickly realized that's probably the ceiling for where you can go in a structured world. The guy I was working with, he'd been there 20 years. And he would say things to me like, well, I don't want to name the filmmaker. Well, this filmmaker's promised me on the next movie, I'll be an associate producer. Well, how long has he promised you that? 5 years, but I think this is the one. There's always a reason for the others. And he would tell me the reasons, and they sound like horse shit. And I was like, what are you going to do then? And he's like, well, then maybe I can work my way up to being an executive producer, or I leave and I make my own indie film. And if that works, then what do you do? It's there's no path.
Yeah.
You're stuck. You kind of can climb up to the place that I had, luckily, before I'd graduated. The same time, I'm reading about Valiant. What I read was Valiant had been. So what happened to Valiant? They started in the '90s, bought by a video game company named Acclaim Entertainment.
Yep.
Acclaim's this giant company. Acclaim is not keeping their financial records properly. Let's just say that, so I don't get in trouble. And they get forced into bankruptcy by the government, and they're going to sell all their assets, including Diamond. They're going to break them up and sell them through the trustee auction. Same thing's happening at Diamond right now. And what am I going to do? Just interesting. I'm reading about it, and I read a rumor that Film Roman, who is the company that does the animation for The Simpsons, bought Valiant for $50,000. It's a lot of money, but Valiant's worth a lot more than that, I think. What do I know? I'm like, that pisses me off. And then I read, nope, just a rumor. The auction's coming up in 3 months. So I'm like, I got to do something about this. I make a list of all my friends that I know from Hong Kong that were wealthy, because I had a lot of wealth. I wasn't wealthy, but they had a lot of friends that were wealthy. Top of the list. And I wanted everyone that was wealthy that was a fan of Valiant when I was growing up with them. All those people I was buying comics with, because I needed someone that understood where it could go, how big it could.
Someone that's passionate about comics.
Top of the list was this guy who was kind of not doing well in life, kind of an idiot, but his parents were wealthy, and I said, let's partner, let's do this together. He told his parents were like, oh my God, you're going to do something with your life? And with Dinesh, great, please do. So we went, did all the due diligence. The trick of it was, though, that the key piece is chain of title. What do you actually own? A bankruptcy auction is an as-is, where-is auction, meaning you're buying whatever the fuck you're buying. We, as a bankruptcy auction, don't know. We're not going to do the work. You do the work. Here's all the documents. You figure it out. The key documents, chain of title documents, what rights had been sold, what characters had been licensed, they were not there. 86 parties, including Sony Pictures, Google, everybody, Marvel, put down a $25,000 deposit to do due diligence. Only 3 parties ended up going to the auction because the chain of title documents kept getting lost in the mail or sent to the wrong place or whatever. I got fed up waiting for them. I found a company roster, and I just cold called everybody in the publishing side one by one, took them out for coffees. They were very kind. I think because I was a kid, they were like, here's a fan who we built, right? A lot of them were there from the beginning.
Yeah.
He's trying to do something because he loves it, whatever. Here are the documents that I have at home. And I got to sense, I didn't have an inkling of what I was doing. I read all the stuff. I thought I got a sense of what was there. Luckily, Valiant had done a very, very poor job of exploiting their IP. So a lot of it was there. Almost all of it was there.
Wow.
So I put a number together, went to the bankruptcy auction. There were 3 parties. It was the former CEO of Acclaim Entertainment, whose brother ran the law firm that kept losing all the documents. That's why the documents kept getting lost. It was myself and my partner. And then it was this person that had been a marketing manager at Marvel. I'm trying to think of how to put this without getting in trouble. Marketing manager at Marvel had done something, wasn't quite legal.
Sure. Gray area.
Not gray. Very, very black and white. I just don't want to say it.
Yeah, I got you.
And then went away for a little while. Let's just say that. Went away for a little while. Came back, but they couldn't retrieve the money, so he had the money. So he was bidding. We bid out the former CEO, but didn't have the resources to bid the marketing manager out. Best thing that happened to us was when the auction closed, a couple hours later on CBR and Newsarama, a few other news sites, these articles dropped. The fourth party did not bid, owns the filings, intent to use trademark application filings, and they're going to blackmail the winner. The way that works, the USPTO is slow. It takes 2 weeks once you make a filing for it to show up on their website.
Yeah.
So someone had done all their due diligence, decided, I'm not going to spend the money, I can't afford it. I'm going to file these intent to use applications a week before the auction and then blackmail the winner, which they did. So the winner pulled out. They went to us and the Acclaim CEO. Acclaim CEO said, I put my money somewhere else now. Came to us. I negotiated a dramatically reduced price because I argued we'd have to spend a bunch of money and a bunch of years fighting this, which we did.
Yeah.
Was a very famous party in comics that was the person doing the intent to use application, someone you know, someone everybody knows. They didn't want to be known, so they hid behind a lawyer. I spent 3 years fighting that. Finally got in a call with Christopher Priest.
Yeah.
One of them, Woody. And he was scattered on the day. He's afraid of cats or something. He's had a cat in his car, and he was really freaking out. And he's like, I can't talk to you now. I can't talk to you now. Tell. And he said the name. I'll call them back. He got confused. He
Oh,
told me who the other
shit.
party was. So the next time
Oh.
I spoke to the other party's lawyer, I said the name, and they got freaked out. So we settled, and then I spent 5 years trying to figure out how to make comics work. Comics does not work as a business. That was the epiphany. I'm getting ahead. That's the USC part.
But I mean, what you just said does seem to be a through line through comics, period. Period. Um, Let me ask you this, because these days I'm kind of challenged with trying to make two things grow: the West Coast Davengers channel and this podcast.
Yeah.
And your kind of old school method of calling people up and just kind of I would just being who they wanted you to be at that moment, whether it was a young filmmaker upstart on a film set that maybe he shouldn't have any business being on, or somebody winning an auction like kind of like getting the information. Do you think that some of those tactics like that are even possible today, like getting a list and calling people? Nobody even fucking picks up the phone anymore.
I 100% do. I think I still use the same tactics today. We're going to announce on Friday our first variant cover program. We don't do
Okay.
variant. It's a bad
Right.
idea. We're doing our first one for Planet Death 1 because it's going wide. And I said to the team, if we're going to do it, we got to go big. We
Yeah.
need to build the biggest cover program we've ever done, Valiant included. We need to build a cover program that's bigger than anything Marvel or DC will do this year, or any publisher. So we put together this crazy cover roster. And the way we did that is just not afraid of rejection,
Mm-hmm.
forcing it. I just figured out how to get to everybody that was a big deal in comics. And I was very open with them. And I said, and this is always my tactic, is here's what I'm trying to do. Here's why. Here's the benefits I see for you. Here are the negatives I see for you. Here's the bad things that you don't want to know that others would hide from you. Now it's on the table. Is there a way I can make it work? If there is, tell me what would make it work for you, and I'll go and try to do that. If I can't do it, I'll come back and say I can't. Thank you for humoring me. If I can, great, let's try and do this. So I think you can brute force it. The tactics have changed, but now with social media, you can see a lot of people. The comic community is very small. If you're at conventions, you can very quickly meet people that know people, so you can be 2 degree separation from almost anybody. Or you can just walk up to them at a convention, man. This weekend, who did I go see this weekend that I was excited about? I forget who it was. It was Larry Welts from Cherry.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not as exciting to others, but I was very excited.
Sure, he's awesome.
You can go and meet Baltimore Comic Con. You can go and meet Walt Simonson. He created Beta Ray Bill. You'll never meet the actor that plays Beta Ray Bill when they do it. You can meet Walt Simonson every year at Baltimore Comic Con. He's a living legend.
Yeah, he is. I mean, and
he'll give you the time of day.
Yeah, he seems like the nicest guy in the world. I mean, that's the thing, though. I mean, comics are so accessible. I mean, shit, how, I had Eric Larson on my channel twice. I had Todd on my channel. Like, these people are accessible, and it's the convincing people. I think you're one that, the story you just told is kind of convincing people you belong in a place that technically you didn't. You got in, and that's that's a story that fascinates me to no end, because I used to do stuff like that all the time, and then I went to the normal working world, and I'm like, nah, I'm fucking done with that.
Everybody, but nobody feels like they belong. That's
no.
I think when you're open about the fact that you don't belong, but you don't give a shit, you're going to try anyway. And if you get kicked out, you get kicked out. People see themselves in you, and they can't help but want to help.
Yeah. I used to sneak into Madison Square Garden all the time when the Rangers, whoever was playing the Rangers, the opposing team, and I'd watch them skate during the day and then go down and try and get stuff signed. And did it, and it was pre 9/11, so it was a little bit easier. But man, it was we did it for like 2 years until we finally got found out.
You got away with it for 2 years?
Yeah. We didn't do it every day, obviously, and 40 home games a year. But yeah, I would say about 20 times a year for 2 years. Yeah.
When I was at Universal Studios, when I was still at USC, lying and saying I was full time. I remember one lunchtime, I read this article about Steven Spielberg and how he was at Universal Studios and how he just went to one of the empty bungalows instead of making calls and pretending he had a deal. So I was like, I'll try that. So I went down one lunchtime, and it was about maybe 8 or 9 minutes in. Security turned up, and they were like, "Are you doing a Spielberg?" They said that. I was like, oh, kind of. And they're like, don't worry, kid. Everyone does it. Go. What office are you in? Go back to your office.
I mean, it's, it feels like a lore at that point, and they just, it's like they
I
expect it
realized
to
how
happen.
popular a story it was.
So Valiant, you made work though. I mean, like I remember hearing the Valiant's back, and I think the history part of it, like the after the fact, it got almost like a urban legend type thing. Like some of these books that you put out, and got a lot of buzz after the fact, which is kind of how comics, I would say at least 50% of comics has worked like that
Yeah.
through the history. People talk about, did you ever read this run by this guy?
Yeah.
No, I've never read it. And then the next person who reads it tells their friend.
Yeah.
What were like like how validated did you feel to start it? And like, was it fulfilling to you at that time?
So fulfilling. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Dream. I loved Valiant like people love Marvel. It
Yeah.
was the only job I ever wanted. I would have still been there now if I could, if I was pushed out. But in like a takeover because of our success, which I knew would happen. If you build it big enough, someone will want to take credit for it and take it
Mm-hmm.
over. But no, it was a lot of work. It was sleepless nights. I had an incredible team, so I can't take credit. I had this incredible team, like a who's who now of executives and creators. And I knew at the time. I remember saying to one of the other people that I was working with, the executives, this only work. We have to be so strategic. This only works if you look back 20 years from now and go, I can't believe they had this creator and this creator and this creator and this creator. These are all legends,
Yeah.
except nobody knows their names today. We have to find those people and then build those people. We have to moneyball it. Looking back, we had incredible creators. Um, so it's this wonderful team, but it was very fulfilling. I didn't want to leave every day. I didn't want to leave work. I would stay there 3, 4, 5 in the morning. I lived in LA, but I'd fly to New York, so I'd be back and forth every week. We
Oh,
had meetings
wow.
every day. I had the office I was running in New York while publishing was. I slept so little. We're a little better about it now in terms of medical knowledge, but at that point, 2010, uh, there was much more of a how hard are you working? How little do you need to sleep? I would sleep 2 or 3 hours a day.
Mm.
I did this for years to the point where I got GERD. I still have it now. It's much, much better though, but it's where your esophageal acids bubble up,
Oh.
burn the shit out of you, and
Eek.
you're in like excruciating pain.
Oh no.
And it comes from lack of sleep because your body's not detoxing.
Yeah, it's not shutting down.
Yeah, but it wasn't just me. I remember one day looking around the Valiant offices, and I was struggling with this. Guy over there has got like a wrist thing because he's gotten
Oh
uh,
no.
um,
Like nerve damage, carpal tunnel.
carpal tunnel.
Yeah.
Someone's moon boot from stress. Someone else has got a chair that they just take into they didn't know I knew this. They would take it into the stairwell and just wail on it when things wouldn't go right. It was a very stressful environment. Everybody was but we're all on a mission to make it work. And it's very nice now to see at C2E2. I had so many people come up to us that were bad idea fans, never read Valiant back in the day.
Mm.
Now they're consuming all of it. They're reading all of it. At the time, we were struggling. We had these hits. We had a lot of awards. That was our
Yeah.
big. We were the best read publisher in the business for 8 years straight. Something like 1,000 awards. One year we had more nominations at the Harveys than every other publisher combined. But it's hard to get people to buy the books. We were doing very well by independent standards, but our goal was to be bigger than that, and that was stressful.
As somebody on the other side of things, as a comic reader, collector, consumer, yeah, I didn't see it at all. There was no, and I would say like 2010 through, before I moved to Seattle. So when I was working in Manhattan, I was going to Midtown, and I didn't really see it. It wasn't put in front of me.
Such a comment. I mean, I remember the best thing that we had going for us was we were Valiant. So we had this history.
Yeah.
The worst thing we had going for us is we were Valiant, and people had preconceived notions.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we relaunched Exomano in 2017 with Matt Kint.
Yes.
Robin did a big 60-issue run, huge run, very successful. It was time to close that out. We did a relaunch 6 months later, and I'd been touring all these stores, talking to retailers and hand selling. I asked them, can I come in on a weekend and sell the books for you at the counter, any book, just to get an understanding of how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an epiphany, and we took the Valiant logo off of the Exomano 1 covers, and they sold like gangbusters.
Yeah, because it left, I mean, for those of us that were not Valiant fans big time in the, in the 90s, it left a stain because like Valiant kind of was the stake in the heart of comics at the end of the 90s. It was the combination of that plus the death of Superman plus the breaking of the Bat, the Clone Saga, and all the gimmick
Marvel,
covers.
all the Image launches. The thing is, Valiant was equally at fault.
Yeah.
I think it gets the brunt of it because it wasn't there to defend itself. It wasn't there to then evolve into something where you could forgive it.
Well, because
Do that.
Mazarsky wasn't a good figurehead for a company. Like if you had kept Shooter in there, he would have sink or swim. He would have handled it.
Yeah.
But you can't change the past. But what you did with Valiant, I know it's like super prideful, and it's like comes from a love of comics and specifically Valiant. Like I've talked to so many people that are your champion for Valiant.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's nice. It's nice to know that like it's a version of that company that won't be forgotten.
That I was very nervous about that. There's nothing you can do about that, but it has been nice seeing it grow year over year. It feels like that era is as popular now as it was at our heyday, even though it's heartbreaking to watch the company not be able to find its footing and its voice and not really be able to be a force in the industry. Despite that, there's still a lot of conversation about those books that we were involved in.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, I mean, Turok's got a new video game coming out. You never know. There might be some renewed interest. And then, the Bloodshot movie was something that I know was like, was that your final kind of like straw with wanting to be in the movie industry, was just getting that out?
I operate a little differently than a lot of other CEOs in publishing. I do arm's length deals, which means I don't tie myself to things. So I was the designee. The board had a designee that would produce the movie from the Valiant side. The board had chosen me to be the designee because I was involved in it. Once the company changed hands, I knew full well that they would change the designee. They changed the designee. I got my executive at Sony called crying. She's wonderful. She's such a battle axe. I'd never seen her be like that. She was crying. She's like, I can't have you involved. There's nothing I can do. They're telling me, legal's telling me there's nothing I can do. I said, it's okay. It's okay. She's like, I'm going to fight it. I'm going to fight it. Eventually, they brought me back on the movie to work for Sony.
Okay.
Big reason was Eric Heiser, Academy Award nominee over Rival, who wrote Bloodshot. Really, really good guy, friend of mine. He made, he'd be embarrassed, I won't want to say what it is, but he made kind of a gangster move with Sony. He kind of, the story you never hear, where someone just does such a good thing for someone else. He did that for me. And it allowed Sony to be able to put me on the movie working for Sony. So I worked on the other side of the agreements that I had built. When I produced the movie for Sony, wonderful experience. Really had a blast. And then the movie came out pandemic weekend, which meant nobody got to see it in theaters. I still have never seen it with an audience in the theater.
Wow. Yeah, I guess that would be impossible unless you did a private screening.
I did. I mean a paid audience. I premiere, and I threw my own like comic book friends and family screening, but with an audience I don't know that paid for it. Never got to do that. But the movie was huge on VOD.
That's how I saw it.
Yeah, we've gone through like 9 or 10 versions of different home video releases, Blu-rays and HD, 4Ks, all that stuff. It keeps selling there. It's not the same as a big theatrical release.
Right.
But I loved it. And then I started a film and TV company called Hive Mind. We did The Witcher, The Expanse, Scary Stories Tell in the Dark. We're doing a bunch of stuff now even. So I still like the movie business. It's not, I like to be able to do it without having to it be my entire life.
That, I mean, if I mean that it's funny. I went to film school for a year, decided that wasn't for me, but now I have this avenue of my life, which I actually love this. I love doing this. But comics is a different beast. Like you're able to tell stories at a visual medium that are unmatched. You can do whatever you want in a comic. Yeah. There's no budget involved. There's no, there's no actors you have to deal with or actresses or writer. You only have to deal with the writer, the artist, the colorist, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
It's a small group. None of the edges get shaved off. You're right. The characters do whatever you tell them to do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this line, my brand is this, or I don't want to look old or whatever. You don't have to worry about these global marketing machines that don't know what they're doing, but are enforcing themselves because they're creatively unfulfilled. Mm-hmm. You have to worry about all that nonsense.
And yeah, and you can do as many or as little as you want to tell the story, whatever, you feel as the writer or the artist wants to do. You can cater to the artist's, strengths. You can let them color their own books, like a John Wayshak in the upcoming series Cul-de-sac.
Thank you for that plug. It looks good, doesn't it? It looks
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah. I have told multiple people, like, this book is going to blow minds right out the back of their heads.
Just wait till you read Mike Carey's story. I mean, that's where it all. Every time you see us go really, really, really out there with the art and really big and take a big swing, is because the story is. We get the story, we build it, we look at it, and we go, we got to do something special. This
Well,
thing is
Carey's a
incredible.
great writer. I mean, he wrote Lucifer and, it's
Unwritten X-Men. Yeah.
Unwritten. That's the other one I was thinking of. So let's get into Bad Idea. We're about to find out if Dinesh Shamdasani is a bad idea. Um, so I have to be honest with you up front.
Yeah.
There has never been a point where I have actually had a bad idea book in my hand.
Is that right?
I've never seen one in person. I'm sorry. I bought a collection that had ENIAC 1 and Tankers 1. But
Now,
yeah.
this is it. This is the time.
Yeah, well, and so let's get to the genesis. Where does the bad idea? Where does this start for you?
So the end of Valiant starts at the end of Valiant. I had an investor, a partner, DMG. They were not good partners. Luckily, we had very strong agreements, and we kept them to just their contractual, our contractual obligations to them. They didn't like that, and as we became more and more successful, especially as we became more and more successful in the film and TV side, with the Russo brothers and Dave Bautista and Reggie Hudlin and all these in the Bloodshot movie and Eric Heiser, etc. They very much wanted to not just own that; they wanted to take credit for it, and so they started buying up some of the minor investors, and then through some circumstances, they were able to convince the other major investor, my partner, that it was time for them to sell and relinquish their controls, which meant that they could push me out.
Yeah.
Which was heartbreaking. I had about a year to try and fight that, and couldn't do it. And I'd fought most of the time I was at Valiant. I would say about 90% of the time, the company was either about to be sold or I was about to be fired. That was just the life I was living, which is
It's
fine.
stressful.
Which is why it's stressful, sure, but I deal with stress well. But it gave me this understanding that it's not a guarantee that because I'm in the spot doesn't mean I'm going to stay in the spot. I need to say every moment. I need to be, when I leave, I need to be able to say I didn't let anything go. We pushed as hard as we could. So I feel very good about that. I don't look back and go, I wish I'd pushed that book a little harder, or I wish the books that we were working on when I was leaving came out the way that I knew they would. I don't think they came out differently. It's not for me to say whether they're good or bad. But DMG were not very good at their job.
Yeah.
And when they pushed me out, contractually they had to pay me a lot of money, but also they put a contract in front of me where I was, forced to resign without any controls, you're tied to the company for 3 years. You don't get your money unless you stay here as a consultant. They wanted me gone day one. They put me on a 30-day consultancy that they never used. They never called me. From day one, I could do whatever I wanted to. The only thing I couldn't do is I couldn't solicit an employee to come work for me. Non-solicitation, but no non-compete, no non-disclosure, none of that. Very weird.
Yeah.
Paid all your money at once.
One would say it's a bad idea.
It was a terrible idea. It's a very bad idea. And I knew that I was going from this like really, really, really intense lifestyle to not having anything to do. And I was honestly afraid of that. And so I thought to myself, I need to wake up the day after and at least 50% intensity be working on something. So I started thinking about bad idea, and I started to put together, well, what would I do if it's my house? Valiant wasn't my house. I didn't build that house. We came in, it was a house that was distressed, and we tried to build it back up to its former glory and then expand it. But if I had to build my own house, I would do things differently. What would I do? One of the statistics that I kept running around in my mind was 80% of our sales at Valiant were coming from about 285 stores. And I remember talking to Mike Richardson about this, and he said, yeah, the numbers is about the same for Dark Horse, which is wild.
Yeah.
284 stores around the world, sell 80% of non-Marvel and DC books. And I thought,
That's
well, what if I
nuts.
Jerry Maguire this? What if I say we're going to focus on just a few stores and we're going to do a lot for those stores? Can I increase sales in those stores to make up for all the sales I'm losing from the other stores? Can I surpass that? That was piece number one. I didn't want to do trades because inventory cost. I was looking at Valiant and I had millions of dollars in inventory cost just sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
selling fully every week, every month, but it was eating up a lot of cash flow. Can we avoid that? And I had all this list of variants, digital, different reasons for all of them. So I built this different company makeup, and I knew that it would upset people, and I knew that we would change all these things eventually, and it would get a lot of buzz because awareness is so difficult. You want people to be aware.
Yeah.
We launched so big. The entire time we've been in business, Bad Idea, our average sale is higher than the highest average sale I ever had at Valiant. So we didn't change it. We kept going. It's 5 years in now. The only reason we're changing it now is the marketplace has changed significantly. We have a slate of books I think is the best slate of books I've ever been involved in, launching with Planet Death, which is a book I think, well, the numbers prove it out, could be very, very commercial and very wide. And so we didn't want to hamstring ourselves. Also, we were getting to the point where people like you who should be reading Bad Idea just didn't have access to it
Yeah. Yeah.
because the store wasn't one of the 250 destination stores.
Yeah. And for me, buzz is a great thing. And sure, I heard all about obviously some of the good and
Yeah.
some of the not so good, like, the gimmick with the CGC thing. And I don't agree with that, but that's okay. I don't have to like even half of the things that any single person does. But what I kept hearing was they're good stories, they're great art.
Okay.
The books are good. And like, to me, that's all I fucking care about.
Yeah.
Like I said this on my retailer roundtable, like if I want to buy a first appearance of Galactus, it's because it's Galactus. But if I'm hearing about a new book and I'm excited about it, it's because I want to read it, because I want to own it. I want to consume it. I want to sit with the story. I want to maybe read it again. I want to check out the art. And that's what I kept hearing about Bad Ideas. Like, oh, they're great books. I'm like, where the fuck am I? Where am I going to get one? But on the flip side of that, as a person that's very DIY, very, punk aesthetic, not big into the conformity of systems and stuff, I appreciate when somebody tries something different, especially because, like, we're both kids of the 90s. Gimmicks were a part of comics since we were kids. There's some version, and I don't mean a gimmick as like a chromium cover. I mean like a gimmick to get people to look at the thing. You want, I mean, like Kirkman even uses gimmicks. I mean, look at what he did to end Walking Dead. Surprise, this is the last issue.
Yeah. He just the packs where he's going to insert limited books. He did chromium covers.
Yeah.
I think all that stuff works. You have to pair it in the right way. You have to balance it. For us, it was very much, we were the best read publisher in the business every year I was running Valiant. And I knew we could continue that. And I felt like we can make the books better, which I think we did. We didn't do a lot of reviews, so people don't get to, I don't have an objective number I can point to and say, look at these reviews. But the feedback we've gotten is very strong. And I think the fact that we got away with so many insane gimmicks, we wouldn't have gotten away with them if the books weren't stunning. The creators did incredible work. Not everything we did work. I mean, we're experimenting, right? So we saw a lot of things that did work, and we saw things that didn't quite work, and things that almost worked but really didn't work.
Well, I mean, and for any new publisher in general, you have to fail a little bit. You have to have things that don't work, because then, look, Image is a great example. We saw what they did with us. Like, we all were salivating at the mouth for those launch titles. And here we are, 32 years later. Spawn, Savage Dragon, still going.
Yeah.
Well, Rob Liefeld's doing whatever Rob Liefeld does with Youngblood, but nothing else exists. None of that early stuff exists.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't that good. It was no substance. But, I've not read Planet Death yet, nor Cul-de-sac, but I've seen these preview books, and the art I can attest to is art I want to see more of.
So happy to hear that, because the stories really are, as good as the art is, the stories really are better.
Yeah.
So now that we're 2 weeks away today from Planet Death Zero hitting stands, I can't wait. I think it's going to be a little bit of an atomic bomb going off.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's coinciding with pretty much free comic book day, right? Yeah. And, people are, I mean, I know I had the retailers that I had on from Comics Place and Now or Never, they said they ordered it and they're basically waiting to see what happens, What is there anything like that you could point to that maybe was coming from Valiant to Bad Idea was your biggest roadblock in between those two things, like starting Bad Idea?
Yeah, the thing that comes to mind is probably not a nice thing to say, but it's the one that comes to mind. I had a great crew at Valiant,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of them were brand new. I'm talking about executives. A lot of them were brand new. They were like people that never worked in comics before, people that never had a job before, interns at Marvel, etc., that kind of thing. A few were industry heavyweights, and a few more were industry heavyweights that had kind of fizzled out. So we had this kind of motley crew we put together, and together it became a really, really, really strong machine. And
Yeah.
we were punching at the same as punching way above our weight. And I think a mistake I made that was a roadblock was keeping that team as much as I could, keeping the core team. What I hadn't factored is Bad Idea was different than Valiant. The goals are different than Valiant. Valiant was very traditional. Here's everything everyone tells you a publisher should be.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you understand. Here's everything they tell you not to be, and then some extra shit that's annoying. And at Valiant, all we did was get praise. We announced something, they go, amazing, you guys did the right thing. Finally, someone doing that. At Bad Idea, we knowingly announced the wrong thing, get the reaction we want, which is people divisively talking about us,
Yeah.
spreading awareness. Hard for the crew sometimes. And then also, candidly, I was a different person. When I started Valiant, I was a kid. Never done anything in my life, really. Having built Valiant, sold Valiant, built a movie company, built a toy company, different level of people that I'm interacting with business wise, big art collection, money in the bank. It changed the way people interact with me,
Mm-hmm.
especially people that had been there the whole time with me.
Yeah.
One of the things that was very, very was a big moment for us was I kind of did a sea change. Brought in did the same thing I did at Valiant. Brought in a bunch of people that were new and hungry and really smart, and I feel like the team is really strong right now. And you can see that between the end of our last slate,
Yeah.
18 months ago, which was a very good slate, didn't hit. We did well, but it didn't hit like this slate and the beginning of this slate where we're like, it's just we can't. We're fielding opportunities and not doing the work we should be doing every day because there's just so much incoming at this
I
point.
bet.
And that's the team. Again, that's the team. That's Brockton McKinney. That's Santa Fallon. That's Peter Stern. That's Ben Simpson. It's a great team.
Yeah, and I've interacted with Peter, and he's great. And
Amazing.
look, I mean, just for people that don't know, I'm friends with John Washak. I've known John for a decade, and John's working on this book Cul-de-sac, which Bad Idea will be putting out. But I've been watching this kind of every step of the way. I watch you interact with him, and your mind gets blown looking at his artwork, and I'm like, yeah, this is everybody's reaction that sees John's artwork once they're introduced to it, at whatever point that is, and they start looking at it a little bit more, and they see him do a character they're familiar with, and then they look at his sketchbook,
Yeah.
and it's like, and
He's a
me,
fine artist. He's a literal fine artist, like Paul
yes,
in our meeting.
yes. Yeah, he is. I mean, he schooled. I had him on the show very early on, on Davengers, and he like taught me. He took me to school, and I was happy to go to school because I'm
Yeah.
like, teach me, But it's things like that like the cross section too that really makes me appreciate what you're doing is you're a big fan of art and artists, and you're
Yeah.
obviously you have, if not the greatest collection of the last 40 years of comic art that anybody has, but the fact that you also appreciate it so much that you're putting these great artists onto books. And I think and you're putting great writers on there. So
Yeah.
those two things, that marriage of words and pictures, is exactly what you're shepherding. And so I just want to say like that's what makes me excited. And I hope that this next wave really gets into the hands of people, because as much as I don't want my favorite punk band to ever make it big and lose who they are, I want people to hear that band. So I want people to read the books with these artists.
I don't think it's possible for us for two reasons, to make it big and lose who we are, because we just like it so much, and two,
Yeah.
comics is just who's made it big in comics. Kirkman. That's
Yeah.
really it.
In the last like 20 years. Yeah.
You making it big is surviving.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, I hope we survive.
Sure.
We'll survive. I don't mean to scare anyone. I just hope we survive. What's the word I'm looking for? Comfortably.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what we all are hoping to do as humans. I think for the general population of us, some of us, they want to take dick rockets into space. Let them stay up there. That's
Yeah,
fine. That's fine. We don't need them anyway.
that I was just thinking, I sound like an asshole. I sound like a Jeff Bezos asshole. We just sold 900,000 copies, and I'm like, I just want to survive.
Yeah, but you sold. I mean, like, look, I don't want to. We don't have to get into the weeds and numbers, but what 20? It was a 25 for 750.
It was yes, 30 cents a piece.
30 cents. So I mean, that's what do they call that? A loss?
It's not a loss,
It's not a
thankfully.
loss. Okay.
Partly because we're printing the book on newsprint, which is just amazing. I mean, we want to do that for the whole line. We're
Hmm.
going to do it for certain things, but when looking into it, plus we found a different kind of way to press it, and a different kind of cover stock, different process. So we're not losing money on it. We're not making a lot of money. We're making a decent amount of money.
Okay.
But it's a huge number. It is discounted. It is right before Free Comic Day.
Yeah.
We did bundles. We did a lot of things to get it out wide. We looked at it and went, what can we do to get people to see this art? If you see this art, you're going to want the book. If you don't want the book after seeing this art, you don't like comics. This is what comics wants to be. So we thought, okay, let's just do something incredibly. We were thinking about the Marvel and DC 9 cent, 10 cent books.
Yeah.
What can we do to get? And I thought we'd sell 150,000 copies, 200,000.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody anticipated seeing those numbers rise that quick. But right now, I mean, I think with talking about how C2E2 was amazing and seeing books sell. All right, seeing books sell in record numbers. Sure, that's great. We can also talk about variant covers in
Yeah,
some of these books that are selling crazy numbers. But I think what really is an interesting thing is I can tell you that most of the people I've talked to that I'm friends with are reading one of the absolute books. Like they're reading this book or that book. People are reading them and getting away from people buying comics because they think they're going to fucking retire on them. You know,
yeah.
let's get into the story, the art, like you said. Uh,
You're right. We have a lot of big problems in comics right now with the bankruptcies, tariffs, etc. We have two massive things going for us. Marvel and DC are finding their footing. They're doing a
yeah,
good job, and the industry goes as Marvel and DC goes. And retailers have done a great job with their businesses. They're very stable. They're profitable. They're growing, and I think for our numbers are a testament to how strong retailers are. They So many retailers came to us and surprised us, saying, I want to do this program because I have this opportunity. And we were like, that's a thing? Sure. We can get you what number? You need that many? Can you really? Oh, you can move those? Okay, let's do that. That was surprising to us.
yeah, yeah. I think we're at a point where retailers are trying to be a little bit more hands-on because I think they're seeing, and this could just be the people I know, but I think people are trying to leave a little bit of that dependency on Marvel and DC in the past
Yeah.
and lean into smaller publishers, Distillery or Boom or Dynamite or, any of these Mad Cave, whatever, bad idea. And also lean into the fact that if I support a smaller creator or a smaller company, the back end means they're probably going to support me in the
Yeah.
future
Yeah.
by putting
And they
out
have
good books.
tabletop games,
Hmm.
card games, snacks, collected editions. They're very diverse now, which has given them. It makes them a little more immune to the ups and downs of publishing.
Yes, yeah, but I think it's always a groaning and growing concern of comic fans. Like, I don't want my comic store to turn into fucking Funko Pop land because that's just terrible
Yeah.
for everybody. I wish we had uh, Marvel and DC or comic cards back in stores. That's the one thing I wish we had.
I know.
Think about. I mean, this is just something off the top of my head that I probably said in the past, but think about any of the four, let's say Dark Horse, Image, Marvel, DC.
Hmm.
Why are you not making a $2 pack of cards that every retailer can buy boxes of that are comic store owners and put them right on the counter? That was the biggest impulse buy for us as kids.
Yeah.
Is those Marvel Universe packs for, at the time they were whatever, 50 cents.
I agree. I don't know the reason. I can tell you the reason is not manufacturing cost. I
No,
know the reason stickers don't work the way they used to. You used to see sticker packs all over the place.
sure.
Price of stickers have gone up tremendously. I guess there were certain factories overseas that would do the bulk of sticker printing in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and they're just gone now.
Hmm.
Trading cards are not that different in price, so I'm not sure why. Must
Yeah,
have
I know.
distribution, or maybe consumer patterns have changed. I don't know.
I think it's well. I think a lot of the companies got smart to the big time collectors of cards, and they just want to exploit those people.
Yeah, actually, you're probably right.
Just exploit. You can exploit me for $2 a pack. Come on, there's so many of us that want to be exploited for cheap.
But they'd rather sell someone. I've seen these cases
Yeah,
up, and they've got lights to pop up, and you've got one pack in there, and it's $10,000 to buy this case, and you might get a $500,000 card, or you might get nothing.
we might have been in a room with the same people that are the ones that they're exploiting during
Yeah,
OAX.
yeah. No, you're right. We were. Yeah,
I mean, God, it's a conversation that would be fun to have with a bunch of publishers and veterans of the comic industry and myself of like, let's put exploitation on the table and what you've been doing to us since the 80s or whatever. But people, I'd love to get Gareb Shamus, but he won't break. He won't
no,
break. He won't talk about it the way I want to talk about it.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
He has such a great insight. I'm sure.
I know, but I want to challenge. I actually wanted to ask you something that maybe challenge you or not. The Kickstarter programs that you did, I know that there are, and I don't know from experience of like, I didn't back it, but there are people that said they weren't fulfilled completely. Is there anything about that like,
Yeah, we've got two. We've done six. We've got two that are late.
yeah,
Um, for two different reasons, but everything else is on track. Or some of them are early. We just did a Hank Howard
the
pizza,
pizza detective.
which we sent out in record time, 30 days after the close of the campaign.
Yeah.
They've got hardcovers, and we've got a timeline for where they'll get everything else, but they got their main thing. The two that are late that we're getting a lot of, rightly so, a lot of heat for.
Hmm.
Um, Megalith and
Yes.
Save Now. Megalith is very late because Louis the Rosa, the artist, he doesn't like to talk about it, so I won't say too much, but I won't give details, I should say, but I'll
Sure.
say about it. He has a he has a health issue, a severe
Mm.
health issue related to his back. He cannot draw
Mm.
more than 15 minutes without having to then go and do 45 minutes of stretching. So his day
Jesus.
is literally 15 minutes of drawing, 45 minutes of stretches, 15, 45 minutes. And there are days where he can't draw at all. He can't talk on the phone
Mm.
anymore. We just text and email. If I do get him on the phone, it's incredibly painful for him. He's mostly in positions where the pain has subsided, and unfortunately, there's nothing that he can do. It's just going to get worse and worse. It's quite, it's really heartbreaking.
Sure.
Uh, he is working on the book. He's about 9 pages out. He's about a month a page. So, assuming nothing gets worse, 9 more months, which is a long time.
Yeah.
Um, but it is a mission for him. It is keeping him going. I worry about keeping him going after the book is done. I've got to figure out what his next mission is, because health issues related to pain can cause a lot of problems.
Chronic pain is a
Yeah,
terrible way to live. Yeah.
yeah. He won't even let me come out and see him until the book is done. He keeps saying I bought tickets, and he tells me to cancel. So I'm excited to see him. He's a really, really sweet guy, and I think the best artist in the business is, and he wants to keep the art at the same level.
Hmm.
And every page that's come in, we update, and people are stunned. And for the most part, everyone's very, very nice. Occasionally, we'll get someone saying, "It's so long." Anyone who wants a refund, we give a refund to. That one's late, and that's the reason. Save Now, a different reason. The book was basically done, would have been on time, and then threw the back half out. Madkin had this incredible idea for a story that was, I think, is going to be a story we're really, really, really remembered for. I've never seen it done before. It's very, very moving. I get very moved thinking about it. Everyone I've told it to is just like, that's one of the greatest stories I've ever heard in comics. It's a superhero story, but it's done in a way like Miracle Man or Kingdom Come or all these seminal stories where you see a path for superhero stories for the genre that you haven't seen before, and you're like, why
Yeah.
has anyone done that? And he came with ideas, so we were like, it's going to piss people off. We got to throw the back half out, We've got to rebuild it. In fact, in having thrown the back half out and rebuilt it, we're finding that we have to almost build it from scratch again. We can move some of the art around from the first 2 issues, add some new art. We can make that work, but we're going to have to redraw the back half, which Tomas Girello is doing now. So that one's late as well, although that one's very close. So those are the 2 that we are very openly and admittedly delayed on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, comics is there's so many moving parts to it, and so many people I think are disappointed by comics stories often, right? There are so many people that you hear like, this came out and it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Well, maybe it's because stuff gets rushed. A lot of stuff gets, way, people get in over their head. So, I mean, to take a step back and understand, like, okay, this is going to be delayed. I mean, I know it's not easy pill to swallow for somebody that's put their money into it or waiting for it or a fan of that or a publisher, but it's.
No, and we try to be very open about it. Anyone that wants a refund, we've not had that many. I think we've had, of the 3,000 or 4,000 people that back Megalith, I think we've had 5 people ask for a refund.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
A lot of times people want to be like, this is not cool.
Yeah.
I'm upset. And we say, what do you want to do? Do you want a refund? No. The art looks amazing. They just want to vent a little bit.
Yeah. Hence what we were talking about before with people on the keyboard. They say one thing and they see in person and they just want to shake your hand.
Yeah. But with everything else we're doing, the Kickstarter, sales stuff, we're trying to be very, very cognizant to over deliver in terms of timeline, in order to balance that out, because we know we're negligent on the other ones, on those 2.
And the fact that this new wave is going to be seen by and able to be purchased by a lot more people. I think you're going to see the next thing you put out after Planet Death will probably have a huge interest behind it, because people know that they can get it. And, like I said, the beginning, the DIY aspect and the kind of indie mentality I'm always a fan of it. I've always been a fan of it. It's just the kind of way I operate. I wanted to ask you before we get into original art, because I do want to talk about original art.
Yeah.
Creators' rights, like with the bad idea stuff, like how are you working that with the creators when it comes to that?
There are 2 factors. One, I can't talk about. It's not for me to talk about. It's for the creators to talk about. So if you see a bad idea creator, you should ask them about it if they're comfortable to talk about it. The part I can talk about is that everything we do is work for hire. Like Marvel, like DC, like Valiant, the company owns it. Now, unlike Marvel, DC, or Valiant, we added a new piece, a kind of hybrid piece, a piece that takes it from being work for hire or creator owned and creates a hybrid in between. And it's never been done before. It seems to be working very well. It's resulted in almost every creator I work with saying, I was talking to a creator at C2E2 right before we went to the airport. I said, I'll take you to lunch. Went to lunch. And he's telling me about what else he's working on. And I said, why no creator owned? And he goes, this is going to sound funny, but I kind of look at Bad Idea as my creator owned place. If I have a crazy idea, I call you. If you guys have a crazy idea, I put myself into it. And I said, well, that's wild because it isn't creator owned. And he said, no, but you guys treat me that way. And the way that it's structured financially for them, contract wise, he's like, it is. It's as strong a deal in a different way. And he walked me through some of the pros and cons, because I've never done a creator-owned book. I never worked at Image or Boom or whatever. I know the deals, but he walked me through from his point of view why it is. We have people doing their best work and not worrying about it. We have people, John Wayshak, he's just going back to the pages again and again. He did issue 1. We loved it, pushed him. Issue 2, we loved it, pushed him. Issue 3, he was like, you guys really want me to do my fine art thing? He did it. We're like, it's amazing. Can you go back to 1 and 2 and bring them up? And he's like, no problem. And then with the colors, it's like, amazing. Can you do? And then he goes back. I think issue 1, he's touched those pages. We've approved those pages, but he's gone back 5 times per page. And
sounds about right.
And people only do that if they feel ownership over it. So I can't talk about the other piece. It's not for me to say.
Sure.
You try and take care of them, and they seem very happy. But what I can say is it is all work for hire. The company does own and control it all.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, but it's just something that I'm kind of fascinated with, especially when it comes to the original art and what happens in the movies and all that stuff. But, so let me ask you this, because I didn't, what is the base plot for Planet Death?
Oh, it's awesome. Okay, so Planet Death. We were thinking about how do you take those World War II movies, World War II stories that came out in the 60s and 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, Men on a Mission, like Guns of the Navarone, Von Ryan's Express, Force 10, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do a genre version, a comics genre version, and maybe make it science fiction? So the story is this. There is an alien planet, and it's got a weapon on it, like an alien war weapon. And a battalion is sent to this planet. They spend 6 weeks in basic training. They spend 6 months going to the planet, and their life expectancy is 60 minutes. It gets even worse than that. When they land, the battalion's immediately wiped out. All but the battalion is wiped out. And our story is this one survivor. He's one of very few survivors. Decides, fuck it, I'm going to try to do the mission on my own. And he's got to cross, now our story is he's got to cross enemy lines, deal with natural predators, deal with traitors, get to the weapon, somehow destroy the weapon. That's what he's going to do, all before he is going to punch the clock.
Yeah.
And the first issue is the 0 issue gives you a little background on
Sure.
the players. The first issue is just a rocket. You see them wake up and land on the planet, and it's like the invasion of Normandy, sci-fi invasion of Normandy, with incredible Thomas Girola art. And it's co-written by Rob Venditti, who wrote X-Men Manowar for us, and is no stranger to big science fiction, and Derek Kolstad, who wrote all the John Wick movies. And that guy knows action, if anybody knows action.
He does.
Combination of those two. It's got a lot of heart, it's really cool sci-fi, and it's just a rocket of action. It's one of the books I'm most proud of.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you've been, you showed me the art, some of it. I must have been last year. Show me some of that. So I'm excited for it, and I'm excited to see, also equally excited to see how it's received, and if it's, we're all hoping that comic stores never go away. That's why I always put them on my channel, and having a new book that hopefully brings more people or keeps people in the stores. That's a huge thing.
We hope so. We're not. It's hard. It'd be very surprising for it not to land well.
Yeah.
How well it'll land. There is a top end to independent publishers. It's not Batman. It's not Spider-Man. So it won't change the industry. But for an independent book, I'm hoping it'll give us a platform then to be able to get people excited about Cul-de-sac and the other books.
You say that, but we talked about Robert Kirkman, and Robert Kirkman changed the face of the industry with 2 books, and obviously Walking Dead being this whatever $1 billion property, but look at where Invincible is right now. More and more people are going into stores and seeking out the trades and the compendiums and becoming comic readers because of this amazing, great animated series.
You might be our George Lucas, dude. I mean, if you went to film school, would you tell anyone to try and be George Lucas? You can't create Star Wars.
No.
You could roll that dice a million times. You're not going to get Star Wars. And then he went into Indiana Jones as well. That might be who Kirkman is. He's just some kind. I don't even think he knows how he did it.
No, I mean, he did it with a bunch of just love for the medium, but also kind of the famous story that he told Valentino that there were going to be aliens in Walking Dead, and there never was.
Yeah.
It's a great little fib that got him in the door. And I mean, Invincible to me is the best superhero comic written in my lifetime. I absolutely love it.
Yeah,
I have for a long time. Speaking of comics and art.
Yeah.
Yes. So I found out who you were before I even knew Bad Idea. I was like, oh, this guy who owns the Amazing Spider-Man 300 cover and the Ultimate Fallout 4 cover. Where does your, give me your first introduction to buying original art. Like when you realize oh, I can buy this stuff.
I bought a few pieces of original art pre 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a Valiant piece here and there, not a lot. Not spending a lot of money on it. Didn't really think about art. I was too focused on Valiant, but I love the old Valiant, so I bought a few pieces. That's how I got my first few pieces. When I really started to focus on art is thrown out of Valiant, had a lot of money, had a big Valiant-shaped hole in my heart, and I was like, what am I going to do? How do I don't like this feeling. Even if I create my own company, I love the Bad Idea characters.
Yeah.
but I don't love them like I love the nostalgia of being 12 years old and seeing X-Men Man of War, and I'm never going to feel that again. So what do I do? I thought to myself, well, I'll go and I'll buy a low grade copy of all the Marvel keys. I don't have any of them. I'll get an Avengers 1, 1.0, AF 15.5, whatever. I get a few of those, and then I go, instead of getting the next one, I go, well, maybe I get an AF 15 3.5, or maybe an Avengers 7.0. And you start to like that happens, and then you go, well, maybe I get the cover art. That thing's coming up. I do like that book. And the first time I got I got the Uncanny 248 cover.
First, is that the first Jim Lee?
First Jim Lee X-Men cover. And I love that book. Everyone, it's so well known. I've seen it on walls so many times, seen Wizard Magazine, etc. And that pink background. It's just a cool cover. It's Jim Lee. Who doesn't like Jim Lee? And I got that cover in hand, and it was like, I don't know, touched it and something changed in my brain chemistry. I was like, oh my God, Jim Lee touch this page. He sat over the board in the 80s and 90s. It's X-Men. There's only one Uncanny 240. I'm the only one that this is so weird. Wow, how crazy is this? I turn it over and I see all these little like marks and like a phone number, and I'm like, was he like write a phone number down? Like, wow. Like bought it on Heritage, and I called them and I said, where did this come from? Is it like a collection? No, it came from Jim Lee. He had it. I was like, oh, I bought it from Jim Lee at Heritage. And then it was over. And then I started to I was like both comics and art, and then over time, it's hard to care about comics at the moment.
Yeah.
I still love them, and I do get the bug. Even last night, I was looking on Heritage. I'm like, there's a Golden Age book that I really want. But I'm very lucky. I made a list in my mind of I wanted to have every major first appearance book that anyone could come into my house and say, "Do you have this?" I have them all now, and there's not the same hunt. It's not the same going to a dollar bin, a higher dollar amount. So art is where I'm at. So I went nuts. I went absolutely nuts. The second part of this is I watched this. I like art. I like museums. I was watching this documentary on Monet, and towards the end of the documentary, they've got this guy, this like schlubby looking dude. He has the vibe of a comics fan, but not a comics fan. Dude, and he's very excited, giddy. He's not like anyone else in the documentary. Everyone's posed, and it's art, fine art. And he's just like, oh my God, I fucking love Impressionist paintings. I'm like, who says fucking love Impressionist paintings? And he's like, I worked up my life. I'm a lawyer or something, banker, I can't remember. And he saved up all this money, and I bought a Monet. And he's in a museum, and the Monet's up on the wall. And he's like, and I lend it to this museum, and it's got my name there. And like, it's amazing. I get to own this Monet, and they're taking care of it for me, and I don't have to worry about insurance, anything. I was like, that would be great. Oh my God, I love Monet. I should do that. And I looked up Monets, and I was like, good God, they're expensive.
Millions, I'm assuming.
Yeah, millions. I made a lot of money, but I'm like, I could buy one Monet, I guess. Or I could have the greatest collection of original comic art on the planet. Let me do that thing. And so I think I found it at the right time. And I think also me buying it and being so public, people weren't public about it in the same way. I didn't care. I was showing it off. I put my gallery up there, talk about it. It got people to understand a little bit more how you can do it, where you get it. People got excited about it. I can put a collection together. So I went absolutely nuts. 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22. I've slowed down a little bit now because I'm too busy with Bad Idea. I still do buy too much art, but it's not like it was in those years.
What?
Prices up so much.
Yeah.
You get like a price in your head of what you think things are worth, and when they quadruple, you go, it's hard to justify that.
It's interesting because I was around it a lot. I owned some pages back like 10, 12 years ago. I actually owned a Tradmore Luther Strode page, and I don't have it anymore, but we don't have to talk about that.
First, second, or third?
First.
I love that. I love that. Great.
Well, I remember my LCS. I just saw the book, and they're like, you should check that out. You'll like that. And boom, it was love at first sight.
Yeah.
And I had a color guide from ASM 350 when I was a young kid, and I was always getting sketches. Like I was always smart enough to, like, when I met Stephen Platt when I was a kid, get a sketch. I got a Todd sketch when I met him in my early 20s. But it was fascinating to me that you could buy this stuff, and I've seen some of your stuff on the Marvel exhibit, the stuff that you lend to them. But what are your 5 pieces that make you the happiest that you own? Because honestly, art, you're buying this because it makes you fucking happy.
Yeah, it changes. It really changes. I mean, Spidey 300's in there.
Yeah.
Right? I love it because for a number of reasons. It's Spidey 300. I love it because I never had it as a kid. All my fucking friends had a copy, and they held it against me. Um, I love it because when people do, I haven't had it in my home for a little while because it's been touring in this museum. I'm very lucky that it is. But people would come over and they'd see it. I'd show them art. They'd get to that one, and they would
Yeah.
lose their mind. They would either scream at me, or one person said to my wife, "Do you know how irresponsible this is in your home?" Angry, just like trying to. I had another friend that looked at it, turned the page, was looking. Oh my god, this thing! Looked back, didn't say anything. Turned to the third page. Oh my god, you got this thing. Look back. It's like broken him.
Yeah, yeah, you broke somebody's
Oh,
brain.
you got this, and he went back and he goes, "This is a print, right?" I go, "No, it's not a print." He just like shut down for 20 seconds looking at it, and then was like, "What? You, you know, can we look at it? Can we take it out?"
Man. Yeah,
So that
you know, sorry.
go on. Sorry, go on.
No, that cover. I mean, I still own my copy of ASM 300 that I've had since I was 15. Somehow I managed to keep it. If I were to grade it today, it would be probably a 9.2.
Wow,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up my dad was a card collector. My brother was a card collector. I became a card and comic collector. And it was always kind of like, it was never about like keeping your stuff in good condition because it's going to be worth money. It's more like just take care of the stuff you have.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I was terrible at that as a kid. Beat the shit out of everything. I wish I had not. What else would be in the top 5? I love Valiant, man. I got the Unity Zero cover.
oh, nice.
Barry Winston Smith Unity Zero cover. My favorite Valiant cover. I did that. Someone had it from back in the day. They went to Barry's studio, I guess, and they got it from his studio, and they've had it in their wall. And I had a dealer, a friend of mine, really nice guy, mention it to me one year at New York Comic Con. I was like, absolutely, I would want that. And I thought, he's got it wrong. He's thinking Unity 1. Then I went and I bought the Unity 1 cover. So I was like, what's he talking about? Next year, I saw him. He said it again. 3rd year, 4th year. Then he showed me a picture of the 4th year, and I was like, we have to do this. And it was last year at New York Comic Con, the year before. I think it was last year. And we did the deal.
Mhm.
I stayed there for 2 days. We went to a Chase bank and did the deal in the parking lot. The bank thought I was being held hostage. So they called the cops. And the guy who was selling me it didn't want me to know who he was. So he sent his girlfriend, who told me who he was, and showed me photos. He's like, he's an idiot. This is who he is. Here's his Facebook page. For whatever reason, he didn't want me to know. And I had 2 buddies with me. We went to Mexican food afterwards. We were looking at the cover, and I noticed Turok, one of the Harbinger characters. Sorry, no, Pete Stanchik, one of the Harbinger characters. On the bottom right of the cover is a stat. And I was just playing with that, pulled it off. Underneath is Turok, who dies in issue 6. So they must not have known that when he was drawing the cover, and they statted him. No one's done that. That one is just makes me happy.
That's cool. You have my favorite Valiant cover.
Turok 1, I do. I don't have it here yet. I gotta go get it from Albert Moy, but
Well, I was there when you bought it.
I paid too much.
You didn't pay.
Emotional. But Albert's very smart at what he does.
Yeah.
What else would be in that list? I have Marvel Masterpiece, one of the Joe Jusko. It's got the Wolverine Sabretooth chase card.
Spectre Etch, yeah.
Spectre Etch, yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know what else would be in that list. It changes all the time. Comes to mind right now is the first appearance of Gambit cover. Actually, it's here somewhere. Hold on.
Yeah, 266. That's right. You do own that. Oh, what are we going to see, friends?
Here.
It's a Monet. Oh my God. That's unreal. Like that.
Isn't that cool?
The original is, it's one of the rare ones where like the original is as cool as the cover. Obviously, sans colors, it's always going to be better. But man, that's Adam Kubert, right? Or Andy? Which one of the Kuberts is it? Adam. Yeah. X-Men 266.
Oh, Andy.
It's Andy. Okay. Yeah.
That's
first cover, first appearance. I mean, that book holds so much sway for every X-Men fan.
He was going to do a Planet Death cover for us. He still might do it for issue 2. It didn't make the schedule didn't make sense for issue 1. But he was telling me about the original art he had, and he said, the one I regret, man, the one I regret getting rid of. And I made a lot of money with it. Because he sold it, I guess, not that many years ago. I got it from someone else who got it from the guy he sold it to. He's like the 266 cover. He's like, I wish I knew where that was. And I told him. He was like, "Oh, it's amazing!" He was so excited.
Yeah,
Uh,
you get to you own the first Carnage cover, right? ASM 361.
I don't own the one that was printed. I own the original one. So they did one, and the editor didn't like it because Spider-Man was too defeated in it.
Mm,
So I talked to Bagley about this. He said he had 3 days to pencil the cover. Randy had that same period to ink it,
yeah.
color it, trade dress it, stat it, all that in three
Wow.
days. After spending 3 weeks on the original cover, and the cover that they published is more them balanced. That's why it's so lacking in detail.
Yeah.
Energy, man, it's a cool cover.
Oh, it is. I mean
Good.
that's the first book that I remember getting excited about a first appearance, because like I wasn't buying ASM 300 on the stands. I think I started collecting McFarlane's Amazing Spider-Man maybe like 7 issues later. So like when Carnage premieres in 361, that was my first new Spider-Man villain that I cared about. That, obviously love Venom, but and
My
then you,
kid, my middle son Bodie just came back from C2E2. I told you, yeah.
yeah.
And he bought his little brother Devin, who's 3 years old, who loves Spider-Man, a little backpack, and we gave it to him last night, and he was like, "Oh my God, Spider-Man, and Venom, and Red Venom," and I was like, "No, no, no, that's Carnage." This Carnage, like I didn't realize he didn't know who Carnage
Yeah,
was.
right, right. Why would he? Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
It's
I
so
wish I had that camera.
you own the first Miles Morales, Ultimate,
Co-owned with Mike Hansen. Great
right,
guy.
with Mike. Mike's great. Yeah. Um, how about this?
Yeah.
What's one cover that you are still chasing that you do not have that you would love, like would be your number one? And obviously F-15 or something, but
No, no,
something within.
mine. It's the Spider. It's the Punisher 2099 #1 cover with that blue foil thing. I love that book as a kid, man. I loved it so much. The cover came up for auction,
Hmm.
maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and I'd been very open about it. Has anyone ever seen this cover? And let me know, and I'll throw a finder's fee or whatever. And then it came up for auction,
Hmm.
and I thought, okay, I'm gonna win it. I'm just gonna pay stupid money for it. The cover's probably worth $8,000, and I went up to about $140,000,
God,
and I lost.
that's
At over one, I was
nuts.
like, I can't. I got kids. I can't beat this fucking stupid.
Yeah. Because that paying that much for that cover means that like everything would be skewed. Everything would be skewed.
I'm just setting the money on fire. No one else is paying me that money for this cover. If
Yeah.
anything goes wrong, or the kids need it down the road, or whatever.
Yeah.
It was Jim Halpern, who owns Heritage Auctions.
Yep. Yep.
It wasn't on Heritage; it was on another auction site. He bought it, and I was friendly with his son. His son passed away, but I called him and I said, "What? What?" He told me. He texted me. He goes, "My dad won that cover," and I called him. I was like, "What the hell, dude?" And he's like, "I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't know he was bidding on it." He was just like, "What's cool in the auction?" And he went and he said, "I said, well, Dinesh really likes this thing," and he looked at,
Oh.
"Oh, that's cool," and then bought it.
Yeah. The art world, I learned very quickly. It's a very small community of people that are all trying to get the cool things, and I can't play with that, but I
No,
get
it's
you
stupid.
know
It's irresponsible.
I get to I own like I for me it's just about owning a piece from my favorite artist. So I have a couple McFarlane pages, I have a Bernie, I have a Sienkiewicz. Like I'm
Genius.
never
All of them.
yeah, I'm never gonna own ASM 316 cover, that's or Hulk 340 cover, or the first 3 issues of Savage Dragon, which Robert Kirkman owns. But I get to own something.
You don't know that. You could end up becoming the Joe Rogan of comics.
I no, I'm too nope. No. I'll take the Mark Maron of comics. How about that?
He makes a lot of money, I'm sure.
I love Mark Maron.
Great.
So thank you for your time. Anything else we should talk about with Bad Idea or stuff coming out? Anything besides Planet Death, which is imminent?
We've got a whole slate. It's a pretty killer slate. Planet Death comes out this April 30th.
Mm-hmm.
Issue 1 is July 9th, and we followed up with Cul-de-sac, which we talked about, and we've got a bunch of killer books. Ordained, people are really excited about. Save Now, people are excited about. It's Matt Kint. Habitat with Bill Sienkiewicz, Matt Hollingsworth, Josh Dysart, David Lapham. That's a big book for us. We've got a Kickstarter that we're going to launch soon for ENIAC, our launch book, and we're doing our first trade.
Yeah.
Timed with Planet Death 1, July 9th, will be a hero trade paperback, $12.99. We're going to experiment.
Awesome. Well, this episode will be out right before Planet Death comes out. I, designed it for that. It'll be out in 2 weeks from now. So, check your local comic store and grab your very inexpensive Planet Death preview. And, if your store didn't order it, one of the other stores will, or, maybe you can get them. Maybe I can obtain a bunch and, get them for the people that didn't get them.
I would love that. I will send you some. Absolutely.
That would be awesome. And would you want me to direct anybody to certain like Bad Idea websites, social media, anything like that?
We're on all the major platforms. Hello, at Bad Idea. Hello at Hello Bad Idea. I always forget which one it is. Let me look it up.
Well, I'll put in the link. I'll put the links below.
Okay.
How about that? Well, Dinesh, it's always good talking to you. Maybe I'll see you at Heroes. I'm not sure if I'm going, but either way, I'll see you soon. Yeah.
I just saw one other thing. You want to see something?
Yeah, I do.
That I think you might like.
It's gonna pull out the cover for ASM 316. Oh, Vengeance of Bane. Ooh, Glenn Fabry painted cover. Do you feel in charge? That is amazing. That I recently read it for the first time, or for the first time in 20 years. It's really good, Vengeance of Bane, and the second one. And Fabry is a fucking legend. I mean, his Preacher covers alone would put him, on a Mount Rushmore almost by himself.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Yeah, I'll take that. You can send that to me.
Happily.
Get
it out of my. I hate it.
Thank you for your time. We'll do this again, but anybody that's watching or listening, Bad Idea, Dinesh Shamdasani, man who is going to bring us some great books coming up very soon. Thank you again, my friend.
Thank you.
Hey, Dinesh, one sec. Somebody's at my door. I think I got a UPS delivery.
Okay.
I'll be right there.
Yep. No problem.
What's all these lights, man? What's happening over here? Whoa, I see a bunch of Turoks on the wall. Something cool must be happening. Oh, lights here, and there's a microphone. That guy's at the door. Whoa. Oh. Hey. Oh, hold on one sec. Cool. Oh, I know you, man. You're that guy. You got all those ideas, but you had a Valiant for a while, man. What's your name? Oh, I see it's Dinesh. I can't say your last name. I don't know those words, but how you doing, man? I'm Comic Tim.
Comic Tim?
Yeah, Comic Tim, man. I'm a hot book.
Yeah. I love the hair.
Oh man, thanks, man. I just got it done. I got a girlfriend. Her name is Miss Terry, and she wants me to always be clean cut, but today I was like, oh no, man. But whoa, yeah, man, you own this, right?
No, never did that one. No.
Oh man,
I own the cover. Yeah.
Yeah, you like drew it with Bert Kmart, and
Bert Kmart. He's a genius.
He is, but yeah, man, I heard that the Bad Idea books, they're hot books. They're gonna be on the top 10 list, and I'll be able to take Miss after I buy the books. I'll be able to take Miss Terry on a nice vacation to Tijuana.
Great. I'm gonna make sure we do Chromium just for you, Comic Tim.
Well, Chromium is actually in my blood. I am 75% Chromium, man. Well,
you look like you're from the 90s.
I am, man. I am. I got that Atomic Fearless shirt, and I just love the hot books. I went. They tried to get me to go to church, but all I said was, I'm going to read my Wizard magazine and pray to the top 10 list, man.
Tim, are those sunglasses or are those 3D movie theater glasses?
I took a lot of drugs when I was young, man, and this is the only way I can actually see in the fourth dimension, man. That's why Chromium is all I see.
Tim, you got to figure out Valiant Vision. That's
what. Oh no, man, he froze. I think he hung up on me. Oh, there he is. He came back.
You need some Valiant Vision, Tim.
Oh, I'll go get some of those. Okay. All right. Thanks, man. Dinesh.
Great to meet you.
Thanks for checking this out and listening to my conversation or watching my conversation with Dinesh. Like I said, super enthusiastic, a really good storyteller too, and just has a really interesting path through comics and TV and film. And seeing some of that original art on screen here, or when I saw some of it in person at OAX, was amazing, to say the least. And if you can catch that Marvel Superheroes Museum tour, the Art of Marvel, I'm not sure where it is now, but I think it's coming back to the States soon. You get to see like just some of the most amazing original art that you'll ever see. And it's good to see that it's in the hands of somebody that really, really, really loves it. And don't forget to pick up Planet Death at your comic store if they end up getting the preview book, or when the first book comes out in July. And then Cul-de-sac, you got to check it out. John's art is amazing. And as I said at the beginning, if you could like this on YouTube or rate the podcast or spread the word, it really, really would mean a lot to me, so I can keep doing this and bring you some great free interviews, not behind a paywall, nothing like that. But very, very happy with how this turned out. Thanks for listening to Direct Edition, a podcast about nothing and everything. I'm your host, Dave, and I'll see you next week.